G'day YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. 15th of December 2025, the day after there's been a mass shooting at Bondi in Sydney on the beach. Or the beach front, I suppose, to be absolutely accurate. So, I'm about to go to town on the motorbike. Thought I might as well put the harness on and think a few thoughts with the mouth in gear while on the way to town. Hopefully that's going to work. Okay, camera should be running, and hopefully this is all going to work. With luck. Although I am having a slight bit of trouble with the wiring at the moment. Okay, we will try that. A bit difficult to get the angle of the dangle right on this rig. Must be great fun to have a system that's completely compatible, rather than having a lot of homegrown stuff. However, such is life. All those particular clouds being what they call mare's tails are usually a sign of a change in the weather. Ice crystals falling down from a high altitude being blown westwards. Let's hope they don't bring hot, windy weather. Something like 31 degrees Celsius at the moment. So it's nice and cool while riding. When you stop in the sun, the leather jacket is bloody hot. Always fun interacting with livestock. Daughter's away in the work car. So, unless you've been living under a rock, your news feed, however it comes to you, has no doubt informed you, as mine did me, yesterday afternoon at about, I don't know, 6:45. Two people with shotguns showed up on the esplanade at Bondi Beach, or whatever they call the little bridge, and they started shooting at a crowd of people, and the crowd of people were mostly Jewish people who were attending a 1,000-person picnic to mark the celebration for the first day of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah's the traditional Jewish celebration for what in the Northern Hemisphere is the winter solstice, which Christians filed the serial number of and decided to call Christmas. And I'm pretty sure the Muslims celebrate at the same time, so do the Jains and the Sikhs, the Wiccans, all forms of pagans, pretty much every religious schism, I suppose you could call them. Denomination would be another one. Every form of religious or spiritual philosophy, theology, ancestor story celebrates the summer and the winter solstices, and also celebrates the equinoxes, because gathering food or growing food is intensely seasonal in nature. And apparently pump-action shotguns were the weapons in question. And it's, according to the police, it was a father and son team. And I think 15 people were shot and killed, 16 if you count one of the two gunmen. The other gunman's in hospital in a critical condition. The police are saying that the father was licensed to own 6 different firearms, all of which have been recovered by the police either from the site of the shooting or from the family home. And just before I got on the bike at the lunchtime news, a statement was made by the authorities that the 2 shooters identified with or claimed some kind of allegiance to IS, the Islamic State. So they're going to be in trouble when they get to heaven, because they've broken the commandment that says thou shalt not kill. Or depending on your flavour of semantics, thou shalt not murder. Murder being to kill with intentionality. If you do something that you intend to kill somebody, then it's murder. If you do something stupid and somebody else died, then you might have killed them. But you might not have intended to kill them. But if you turn up in a public place with a shotgun and a bag full of cartridges, shells, and you start shooting at people after aiming, that's murder. So if these 2 gunmen were telling themselves that they were acting in the interests of whatever God theory, it's fairly statistically normal for Islamic State to be claiming to adhere to, I can't see they're going to be well received in the afterlife. I'd say, unless I gravely
understand the nature of thou shalt not kill as a commandment, their God-fearing is going to kick them up the arse as soon as they arrive. So we're left with trying to ponder and contemplate and integrate what we've seen on the media. The big hero of the day is a fruit shop proprietor who decided that, seen as the bloke with the shotgun was firing in the other direction, not looking at him, he could sneak up between two cars, spring up behind the gunman and hook his right elbow around the bloke's neck, squeeze it real hard and take his gun off him. And then the bloke who confiscated the gun did not shoot the bloody gunman. He didn't add to the police's sense of confusion and difficulty in figuring out which person was the good guy. He secured access to the gun and then distanced himself from the gun while sticking one hand in the air with his fist clenched, which to anybody with the tiniest amount of infantry training means form up on me, come to me. While he was doing that, another bloke fell in behind him to basically take the Soviet Union method of dealing with one gun and two people willing to use it. Line up behind the bloke who's got the gun and wait until he falls out of action. And somebody else come in and threw a bottle or a brick or a rock or something at the disarmed gunman, who somehow contrived to get himself shot after he'd lost his gun. Now I don't know whether that meant that the other gunman had more than one weapon on him. Maybe he was able to donate a gun to the clown who was disarmed. But one thing I do know is that today's going to be a bloody horrible day for anybody who is obviously visibly of non-Jewish Middle Eastern descent, because the Jewish community in Australia is running around understandably aggrieved, but instead of being happy at the idea that both the gunmen were put on the ground within 9 minutes of their showing up, they're all whinging and whining and moaning and groaning and moaning that the Australian government didn't do enough to prevent it. Well, there isn't anything the Australian government could do to prevent anything, because that's not how life works. The core business activity of the police force is to react to complaints from the public. It's not to run around and magically prevent bad shit from happening. It is to react after the bad shit has occurred, detect who's done the bad shit, apprehend them, arrest them, take them to court, and provide the facts to the public prosecutor so they can be charged and tried in court. Once upon a time, a couple of years ago, a bunch of people called Hamas living in a place called Gaza decided that they wanted to launch a commando raid against what they see as their occupied homeland. And yeah, they went across the border in hang gliders. And I think from memory they killed about 1,200 Jews, Israelis. And took about 250 hostages, and thereby irritated and annoyed the government of Israel and the Israeli Defence Forces, and provoked them thereby into going across the border into Gaza and spending 2 years turning the place into a charnel house. flattening it to the ground, trying to make sure that no two bricks were standing one on top of the other. As far as I know, the death count is somewhere around 60,000. So you're looking at 50 dead Palestinians for every Israeli that Hamas killed when they launched their commando raid. Starvation has been used as a weapon of genocide. Reporters and first aiders have been deliberately targeted by Israeli Defence Force snipers. They've taken selfies of themselves while they've been looting. Israel as a nation has conducted itself disgustingly in Gaza, which has triggered a whole bunch of people who've been hating Israel since the end of the Second World War. Recently in Australia we've had a spate of swastika paintings and synagogue burnings and intimidation of Jewish people around Jewish schools, which was apparently funded by the Iranian Government Secret Service. The Iranian ambassador was expelled from Australia. So therefore, Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, his first reaction was not to condemn the shooters, to condemn the Australian government for not doing enough to protect the Jewish people of Australia. Somehow in the minds of the Zionist aficionados, it's perfectly okay for Jewish people from the Middle East to come out to Australia and proselytise and propagandise and politicise and lobby for all and sundry to support Israel in whatever the hell Israel might want to do to the indigenous people in Palestine occupied by the Zionists. And it's wrong for anybody in Australia to tell them to shut up, we're not fucking interested in what's going on over there. That's, you know, you came here to get away from that. You've come here now, so shut the fuck up. But it's perfectly acceptable for the Zionists and anybody else who feels sympathetic to their cause to tell all of the Palestinians and the Arabs from any other part of the Middle East to shut the fuck up. They're not allowed to talk about what Israelis or the Jewish people are paying their military to do in the Middle East. Israel wants to commit genocide. Oh, that's okay, because 80 years ago the Germans stopped being nasty to the Jews in Europe, and they'd been nasty to them for a whole 12 years. And what the Germans did to the European Jews for 12 years that finished 80 years ago, that apparently somehow justifies whatever the government of Israel wants to do to all the Arabs in their neighbouring countries and all of the Palestinians in the land that they stole. It's just a fucking mess. Nobody's allowed to state their opinion for fear of being told that they're racist. And the whole mess has been politicised by Susan Lee, the Nigerian refugee who grew up in the United Arab Emirates before coming to Australia and taking up politics. Because, you know, she couldn't do anything productive with her life. And she's been stuck as the sacrificial leader of the Liberal Party after Cadet Peter Dutton drove the Liberal Party to its worst electoral defeat in the history of the bloody party. She's jumped on the Zionist bandwagon claiming that the Australian government didn't do enough to prevent an attack that nobody particularly saw coming. I don't know whether it was a Liberal government or a Labor government who handed out the bloody shooter's licence to the 50-year-old father who raised his 24-year-old son to become a fucking terrorist gunman on the streets of Sydney. All I know is it kind of gives me the shits that any of these arseholes have come into my country and start running around shooting at strangers for political reasons. And of course, me being a white fella, 4 generations after my ancestors come out here, and the people who were 1 generation before my ancestors, they dispossessed the Aborigines. For the convenience of the British Empire. Because England was overcrowded. And there you go. Flags at half-mast on the town hall. The next thing to fear is vigilantism. From the Islamophobic neo-Nazis who hate all kinds of bloody migrants and couldn't tell a Sikh from a Jain, from an Israeli, from an Afghan. The Pauline Hanson voters and Clive Palmer voters. And of course, there's a building feud between the pro-gun lobby and the anti-gun lobby. There's a whole bunch of people who think that somebody who lives in Camperdown in Sydney has no bloody reason to have 6 firearms. Oh, but he goes hunting. What the fuck is there to hunt in Camperdown? He run out of bunny rabbits and he couldn't find any foxes and he didn't know where there was any cats. So he went out there shooting at bloody holiday makers at Christmas time, or Hanukkah celebrationists. In an act of supreme selfishness, trying to paint themselves as heroic from their own crazy, twisted little perspective. But the fact of the matter is, the only true sin or Satan is selfishness. But of course, there's a hell of a lot of people who like to pretend that war's absolutely terrible, except when their father, or their grandfather, or their brother, or their son is involved on one side or the other, and in that case they reckon that their side of their war is fully righteous, because God's on their side. Well, there goes my hoped for parking spot. Is this big fat thing going to grab it? No, he's not. Good, I'll take it. So there you go. Use 24% of a battery getting here. And like I said, the next worry is copycats and vigilantes, all trying to be a hero too. So, warbles on a lot to YouTube.
Well, apparently the camera was working on the ride to town, and I had no idea what it recorded in terms of vision or audio. So, ciao.